underway, broadcasting to you from our North Catholic Studios in Cranberry Township for this fourth episode of our podcast on North Catholic Athletics. My name is Alex Brown.
And I am Ryan Berry.
And together we are your hosts for this podcast. And Ryan, we're getting into the thick of things here at the middle of October. Playoffs are getting started coming up in multiple sports. But let's start with football, where the playoffs are in question right now.
Yeah, they are. The team is 4-4 overall, 2-2 in conference. Right now, it's hovering right around that fourth playoff spot with two huge games left against Indiana, who's 1-3 in conference, and Mars, who is 2-2 in conference, I believe.
Yes.
And then Hampton is another team that's hovering around
2-2.
there, which is 2-2 or 1-3.
They are 2-2 in conference. Right. So it's a lot of 2-2s in conference.
Yep, and it might even come down to that Mars game. Hampton could win out, and if North Catholic only won one, then Hampton would be ahead of North Catholic.
They would.
So if hypothetically, if North Catholic beats Indiana, loses to Mars, Mars would be ahead of North Catholic, and Hampton wins out. Hampton's ahead.
Hampton's in. We're out. It's really, you have to beat Mars. Indiana game, it helps, especially if Hampton ends up losing a game. But Hampton has to lose a game if you're going to go under that. If you're going to go under that way to get in, the Mars game is going to be absolutely crucial to solidifying that spot in there. North is coming off a hideous performance against Avonworth this past Friday, which we were there for, 37-7. They got beat on senior night. They were absolutely terrible. They haven't scored an offensive touchdown in regulation since the Armstrong game, and that was two games ago.
So here's something that definitely helps North Catholic, is that next week Mars and Hampton play each other.
Oh, there you go.
And then Hampton has to face Highlands.
Hampton has to face Highlands too.
The final game of the year.
So, folks, that doesn't sound too unlikely that North gets in.
But even if North has a lot of issues they need to take care of, hopefully getting more consistency on offense is something that comes forefront, and with that being limiting injuries, and just I think the biggest thing, especially last game, was the problem was too many losses on first down. I guess a loss you could say is under 3 yards, but there are a lot of actually negative plays, and there weren't very many wins on first down, which is I like to say above 3 yards on first down, and first down really sets the tone for the entire drive. And
absolutely.
And against Avonworth, they lost too many first downs, and they weren't able to get enough big gains. There weren't any explosive plays.
Absolutely not.
Too much sloppiness, just inconsistency. Or they were consistently inconsistent on offense.
Oh, it's absolutely. And on defense, they just got beat by the taller wide receivers of Avonworth. That was really a big height disadvantage.
That was the tallest team that we have announced. We've seen all year.
Absolutely, and even last year. Keystone Oaks was tall in the playoffs. They faced in their first matchup last year in the playoffs, but they were to handle that one by offsetting it with their offense. That game was like a 48-45 game they played against Keystone Oaks last year, and now this year you're in a situation where the offense has not been able to supplant the defense.
Well, all that has to be in the past now. You learn from it. You look over the film, and you got to get ready. Right now, you get back to conference play against Indiana, then Mars. Or the Indiana then Mars. You have to close out the year.
And so, basically, if Hampton loses this week to Mars, North beats Indiana, North has clinched a playoff spot. North has to win one of their next two. Hampton only has to lose one. Or North controls their own destiny if they win out. And so North really has the rest of the season in the palm of their hands, which is lucky considering their record at 4-4. But it is also is their first year at 4A. So build off last week's loss and move on. North can still make the playoffs, and we'll keep you abreast of that situation as we move forward with our podcast in the coming weeks.
And now let's move on to girls volleyball. Alex, they have not lost a set this entire year. They've not lost conference game, undefeated in conference, with only losing one game this entire year to NA in a non-conference game. They've just been incredibly dominant, and it speaks to how big of a senior impact and senior leadership this team has, that even against teams they know they should beat, they're still able to get up for those games and just be so dominant. I'm using dominant a lot, but there's no other way to describe it.
They really have.
They've been dominant.
And especially against the section teams, as you said, haven't lost a set in section. And then I think they could have played North Allegheny better in a situation. Let's say they played now.
And they have a chance to.
And they do.
October 22nd as they play them again.
And thank goodness they do, because that's going to be a big opportunity for North to really be able to cement themselves once again as being competitive with even the top of schools in the WPIAL and in the state, which they've shown over and over again. But as you talked about the leadership of the seniors, moving up to 4A, one of the only team in the WPIAL to move up in classification, that's not easy to do. And to win the section your first year up there, that just shows how good North is and how good the leadership is at North.
Definitely. Coach Federer has had an unbelievable tenure at North. She's just been so successful, and she's created such a good bond and united the team. They're so together, which I think really has helped them be so successful.
And we've done 3 or 4 games this year on the North Catholic Sports Network for volleyball, and we've seen how they feed off each other during the games. The players on the court feeding off the players on the bench, and that happens from the first point that they get to the final point that they get in the third set. It happens the entire match.
Yeah,
it's
they
really
could be up
remarkable.
22-1, and they're still excited for the points. They're supporting their teammates.
Yes.
When the bench players get put in, the players that normally wouldn't play, they get a point. All the starters are all celebrating on the bench. They don't care that they're not the ones getting the point. They just care that the team is all pulling the same rope and scoring the same. And winning, all they care about is winning together.
And for more on that, let's talk to Sydnei Jones. We're here with North Catholic senior varsity volleyball player Sydnei Jones. Sydnei, thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Sydney, earlier this year, committed to Howard University to play volleyball for college. What made Howard the right fit for you?
Howard has always been the perfect fit for me. Ever since I was, I think, 3 years old, I've been wearing Howard gear.
Wow.
My whole family went to Howard. My parents both played sports there. It's just a huge deal in my community, and I'm really excited to represent.
Oh, that's perfect. Fits right in. Family tradition now.
Legacy.
Yeah. And this year, Sydney, your team is the only volleyball team in the WPIAL that moved up in classification as you moved up from 2A to 3A. And did that feel like a great compliment to move up and a greater challenge for this year?
Yeah, it really felt like a great compliment. It would be really nice to be able to defend our WPIAL championship and our state championship in 2A, but I'm always looking for a challenge and see if I can, get some titles under my belt in 3A. So,
you guys haven't lost a set in section this whole year. What has led to this continued success without even slipping up in a single set?
Our team's pretty old now. We've kind of been having juniors as the starting lineup for a pretty long time, and we've kind of just grown with each other. And, we all know our strengths and weaknesses, and, we know we can do. We don't push ourselves, and we kind of just go with the flow, and it seems to work out.
And sometimes when you play poor competition, sometimes it's harder to get up for those games. How have you guys been able to get up for those games and not even, slip up in a set, as I said before?
No, you're totally right. Those are sometimes arguably the harder games where it's like, you have to make yourself be focused and more in the game than you are in harder games. I think we really just buckle down to the nitty-gritty and go back to the basics, base release, and then go from there, and it seems to work out.
And that rapport you have between teammates that you've built over the last 4 years, like you and Ali Fezco, that rapport, you know where you're going to be before you even look. And how developing that has to be so cool to see that come to fruition over the years. And especially with your team, you have an ability in the final, to the first point to the final point, doesn't matter the competition, to be supporting each other from the bench. And that bench is so important in the game. Speak to how feeding off each other throughout the course of the game really helps your team excel.
Oh, 100%. I always say volleyball is probably one of the most team sports that it can be. You're really kind of helpless in the game. You can only touch the ball once. And, you really got to rely on your teammates. You really got to talk. Communication's huge in volleyball. I think really just our connection for three years coming now has just led up to us being so successful.
Over the last few years, Coach Federer's really helped you grow as a player, as a leader. Can you explain how she's helped you grow in that role?
I owe Amanda so much. I have known her since my freshman year, and just being in the gym with her, she has made me such an amazing volleyball player, and she's like my Obi-Wan. I owe her so much. She's the best. Just like getting down to the footwork and like where my hands need to be in mid-game, I can look over and she already knows what I'm thinking halfway through. So it's really that just connection that I have with my coach that I really, really cherish.
Well, Luke, as you're approaching this playoff run? Any different than in years past as a senior?
I think coming into 3A, as a freshman, I was at South Fayette and I was in 3A, and it looked a lot different than now. So, I mean, I kind of know what I'm going up against, but a lot of people have graduated since then. So, I think just really going back, like I said, to the nitty-gritty and knowing the basics. And I think as our team is really intimidating just based off the name, we can kind of, intimidate people, push them around just by warm-ups, because we really are legit like that in warm-ups. But, I think it's just going to the basics and really knowing what you can do and not trying to stretch anything out too crazy in the, section play.
Well, Sydney, thank you for your time today. It's a great interview. Good luck the rest of the season.
Thank you, guys.
And you just heard from Sydney Jones. Alex has a good interview, and you can really see why she is such a good player on the team, such a good leader on this team.
And why the team is so good, because of players like her.
Yeah.
And we are fortunate to have her here at North and have her on the volleyball team as they continue their success as they play Knock this Wednesday, the 19th. And that rounds out their conference schedule, as that is senior night for them. And they're heading on to playoffs.
Now let's move on to girls soccer. Alex, another undefeated conference season for them, 12-0. Just incredibly dominant all year. Avonworth, they beat 3-0 and 2-0 against a very good opponent as well. They've been dominant. A lot of youth has really stepped up this year, and Simone Sharp has been unbelievable as a freshman. They don't really have that many seniors. I believe only three seniors: Brittany Cullen, Laura McDonald,
and Elle McKenzie. And they've been absolutely remarkable in leading this team. After losing 7 seniors from last year's roster, including some that went on to D1 schools for soccer. And that's a tough leadership loss, and that's a tough player loss. But those seniors have really made up for it. And Coach Sharpless, who they have this year, has been remarkable at keeping this program success at the highest level, and beating Avonworth. That was a big goal going into this year.
And going into playoffs, sometimes you especially because you've been so dominant all year, you might think that the team might not be motivated enough or not be able to get up for a lot of the games. But they lost in the championship last year to Avonworth, and they're still thinking about that. They're not going to rest until they beat them a third time in the championship game, which is which it'll probably come down to that. The championship game against Avonworth.
Depending on seeding.
Depending on how it works. But North is so dominant. Avonworth has been dominant. Only 2 losses in conference, both to North. And these two teams will probably face each other off in the championship. And North, they wouldn't want nothing more than knocking off Avonworth in the championship.
That'd be unbelievable. At Highmark, that'd be incredible once again.
After losing them to the WPIAL championship and in states last year.
Yes, and in states. And you beat them twice in the regular season, but the regular season only means as much as what you put forth in the playoffs, truly. The whole regular season is building up to the seeding for playoffs. And obviously, depending on seeding, who knows what side of the bracket both these teams will be on, whether they face each other early on in the playoffs or if they face each other. It wouldn't be early on because they're both high seeds. But if they face each other before they get to the finals, that would be another tremendous contest, and we'll be sure to keep you aware of that as we progress. But the team has really been led by their youth, and Coach Sharpless has had a tremendous impact on this team. For more on that, let's hear from Lily Karsman.
We're here with North Catholic girls soccer player Lily Karsman. Lily, thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, to start with, Lily, congrats on the section win, and as of now, undefeated in conference play. How is the team able to be so dominant throughout the entire season?
I think our team is able to be so dominant because we've had a lot of practices and team activities that have helped strengthen our team. And then we have our seniors this year, which have been able to help lead us. And even though we have a new coach, I think that we've been able to be so dominant. We have a lot of talent on the team as well. And so we all work well together and get along. So I think that plays a big role in it.
After losing to Avonworth last year in the championship, how much did that motivate you against them this year to be able to go out 2-0 against them, winning 3-0 and 2-0?
Well, yeah, so Avonworth has always been our section rivals, so it's very nice that we've gotten to win against them both times this year, and we practiced hard for those games, and it's a good comeback to beat them both times this year.
After losing as many senior contributors as you did from last season, how have you been able to rebuild and not only rebuild but reload and even be better? You're as good, if not better, than you were last year, and to match last year's success, but to surpass it. How's that happen even when losing that many seniors?
Yeah, so we lost a lot of senior starters too, that played a big role. And I think that a lot of our seniors this year, even though we only have 3, our team's pretty young, but they really stepped up. And so I think like as a junior, I've been able to have more of a leadership role too. And so I think that everyone's just wants to win. And so we're all working hard to make it back to WPIAL championship.
How has first-year head coach Sharpless helped, I guess, through leadership and coaching, helped pave the way for your guys' success this year?
Well, I think Coach Sharpless has really helped us. He helped get us some practices over the summer and really work as a team. And I think that like his leadership, he really takes it seriously and really pushes us hard. So he really likes our team and has a lot of faith in us. I think it's helpful to know that like your coach has a lot of faith in you.
And something that the team has lacked in recent years, especially over your time here, is coaching consistency. Like head coaches, you're on several head coaches now, but now Coach Sharpless, Simone's on the team, his daughter, and hopefully you might have him and the program might have him for years to come. He's going to be back next year.
Yes.
And so having that consistency and knowing that you have a coach that has faith in you that's going to be there, that has to do wonders for your confidence, right?
Oh, yes. I think that he's very involved in our program and he wants to come back and keep helping us win. So I think that's very helpful, especially like this. He's my 3rd coach within my 3 years
That's
here.
unbelievable.
So yes, it is. But I mean, it's different seeing how every coach like coaches you, and I really like his coaching style and what he's doing for our team, and it's working out very well.
Absolutely.
So.
It certainly is.
Yes.
With being able to go undefeated in conference and the second-best team you guys beat 2-0, 3-0, how confident is this team going into the playoffs?
I feel like we are fairly confident, but I mean, not too confident that we want to lose an easy game. So,
Cautiously optimistic?
Yes. So I hope that we're going to keep winning, but not too confident. I mean, any team is going to be good that we're going to play in the playoffs. So we want to keep our work up. So
Absolutely. And Lily, you've had a tremendous season yourself, and we're looking forward to possibly broadcasting your playoff game next Monday, your first one at JC Stone. And so we're looking forward to that, and keep up the great work, and good luck in the playoffs.
thank you guys.
And you just heard from Lily Karsman, and we appreciate her interview, and she was fantastic and has had a fantastic year. And we look forward to seeing what they're going to be able to do the rest of this season. And we'll keep you aware of that as we move along.
Yep, now it's on to boys soccer, Alex. They squeaked into the playoffs at a 6-5-1 conference record, finishing up the season with a win against Armstrong last night, 3-1. Overall, they were 7-6-3. They played Central Catholic out of conference. They lost to them. I don't remember exactly who they beat out of conference because they won one out of conference game. Can't remember exactly what it was, but it's been an up and down year. A lot of inconsistencies in who was in the lineup. A lot of problems that kind of led to this team having just an inconsistent year, but they can all wipe that out in the playoffs.
No, it's been a tough year for them. There's been a lot of ups and downs. They've battled through a lot of different things throughout the year, and they found themselves in the playoffs. And you use the word squeaked in. I think that's the right word. It really has been a lot of ups and downs, but the team has battled. Marcus Kurtz, Rosario Alessandro, Andre Giannotta, some of the leaders on this team, Devin Pascal, among others, have really tried to step up and steer this team into the playoffs, which they have. And for that, the season is a success, especially moving up to 3A like they have, coming from 2A last year when they were runners-up against Quaker Valley. And it's been a tumultuous year, but I think overall it's been a growing year for the program. And going into next year, I think you're going to have the opportunity for the Trojans to really come into their own. They've had a lot of injuries this year as well. Francisco Smith's out for the rest of the season, and Fran has been fantastic throughout this year. Ryan Shantz, he's been in and out of the lineup with injuries as well, and when he's in the lineup, he's been fantastic, as we know. And so many others that have struggled with injuries throughout this year, and now you're going into playoffs. You lose Dylan Scheel coming in since it's his first year. Micah can't play as well this year going into the playoffs. So you're losing a lot of players going into play. A good, probably Plummer Thomas Jefferson team.
They got to embrace that underdog mentality.
Like they did last year.
Yep.
They were the 9 seed going into the playoffs last year. I think this year they're going to be the 15 seed. And they upset every team on their way to the first seed. last season, and now it's obviously a much different team. But who knows what can happen? It's the playoffs, Ryan.
Yep, you never know. A lot of upsets in playoffs all the time, and especially in high school sports, because they did beat Mars. Mars is one of the better teams. They was 9-3 in conference. They beat Mars 3-2 in a game, which was probably their best game of the year.
And they played Kiski close throughout this year. They played a lot of teams close there in the playoffs, and they can really beat anybody. And crazier things have happened. So we'll see what happens.
Yep, we will.
And let's talk a little about hockey, Ryan, as we head into game number 3 tonight against North Hills on Tuesday the 18th, which is the day we're recording it right now. And it's going to be a great matchup, Ryan. You can talk a little about North Hills this year. They've played well coming into their third game of the year as well. They played a couple more than that?
This is their second game,
Second
I
game,
believe.
so they played one game.
They beat Quaker Valley in overtime 5-4. They got a lot of good players, so it should be a good game.
And they didn't graduate many people from last year's roster. North, as we know, graduated 13 from last year's senior team. And it's been a great start for the Trojans already. And as 2 weeks ago, they played McDowell. They beat McDowell 5-4 in a avenging victory of last year's defeat in the playoffs. And then Blackhawk last week on the 11th, in which North beat Blackhawk 7-0 in a tremendous victory, in which Blackhawk never really had a chance to breathe in that matchup. As 5 minutes in, yours truly on the other side of the mic got the first goal of the game, and he got another one later, 2 assists as well. 6 points on the. Is that 6 points on the year for you, Ryan?
Yes.
6 points. Just a small percentage of what it's going to be at the end of the year, but it's been a great start for the Trojans. And tonight's broadcast will be on the North Catholic Sports Network. If you have not seen the broadcast, they're all cataloged on the North Catholic Sports Network, and I'll be on the call along with Callie Martis and Alex Jackson, who will be calling his first hockey game, and we're happy to have both of them along for the broadcast tonight, as Callie will be doing play-by-play, and her first time doing play-by-play, and it'll be great.
Alex is giving up his post for this game.
We'll go in a little rotation here. We got 3. We got another. If Central will be broadcasting the Central game as well. Hopefully, we get a home playoff game, and we'll do a little rotation going on the rest of the year's games. So it'll be good. And girls tennis, they just completed their season, and girls tennis, they lost in the playoffs 3-2 in their matchup, and it was a tremendous year for the girls tennis team. Katie Hardy, even in the playoff match, went on a 3.5-hour match, Ryan. That's a professional level match. And as a sophomore, and she's had a fantastic year. And Annabelle Polowitz, who's had a great career at North on the tennis team, that she is concluding her senior season. And the girls tennis team, under the leadership of Coach Sean Malone, has really grown into something and a force to be reckoned with within the WPIAL, just in his short time manning the program. And for boys tennis coming up in the spring, it's been a formidable force now.
It's going to be exciting, and for the girls, it's only going to get better next year.
And at open house, there were like 10 girls that signed up for open house coming into the upcoming year. And boys, not as much for the boys, but that program will go as well as the success of both continues. And with that, that's about it. All we got to cover today. Girls basketball and boys basketball, that's starting up soon here, Ryan, as we'll be talking about that coming up too.
Yes, we will. As Elena Rocco committed to Harvard.
Yes.
So 2 D1 commits on the North Catholic girls basketball roster. Daisha Lewandowski is committed to Akron,
Yep.
and then Elena's committed to Harvard.
And there might be more to come. There might be more to come on that roster, as that team is going to be fantastic coming into this year. And we're looking forward to broadcasting those games and talking to the players and coaches as we get ready for that. The playoffs are upon us, Ryan. The best is yet to come for these teams, as every team is playoff bound.
Yep, looking forward to more interviews and more podcasts as we continue through this school year. Hopefully some nice playoff wins. That ends our podcast. Another good one, Alex. Thank you all for listening. Remember, we are your one-stop podcast for everything North Catholic athletics.